All right, Bang Bang. Today is Friday. It is September 24th. Welcome to the Dog Walk presented by Barstool Sports. It's True Crime Friday. Allie, you are back. How are you?
I am back.
Yeah.
Like I was here for a couple weeks on our episodes, but I wasn't actually here.
Yeah, you had a nice European vacation.
Yeah. Now I'm back.
Was that your first time there?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Did you like it? Would you do it again?
Oh, 100%.
Yeah.
I ate a lot of food.
What was your favorite place?
Santorini.
Ooh.
It was beautiful.
Santorini.
Yeah. It's good views, good food. I love Greek food.
Greece is so hot in the streets.
Mykonos.
Yeah.
Crazy nightlife.
What, is it really?
Yeah.
A lot of Americans?
A lot of just tourists in general.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, yeah, there's locals, but they thrive off of tourism.
Mm-hmm.
So
Gotcha.
there's a lot of good clubs there. It was a lot of fun.
Gotcha. Did you stop in Italy?
Yes, we did Rome.
Oh, nice. There you go.
Then we went to Barcelona.
Well, do you know a good spot to get your Italian meats in here in Chicago?
Is it JP Graziano?
You got it, Allie. jpgraziano.com, 901 West Randolph. They're open for business inside, everybody. You guys have been hearing all week. The indoor seating is back open. So when you go there during the day, you order like usual, like you used to. You walk in, you look at that nice chalkboard up top, you order your sub, and then you walk down, you say hello to Mrs. G, you pay at the awesome little booth they have at the back. And at night, the window will still be open. So that's late night window, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. And always make sure you're getting your beef. TasteRealChicago.com. It's where you get your beef kit. It's college football season. It's NFL season. So, I mean, if you're going to be watching sports, you're going to be sitting there all day, you might as well throw a beef in the crock pot and get ready to go. It's the best way to get going. Not sure, obviously, Friday, how many are left for the collab. I guess I was saying it wrong yesterday. Everyone was giving me shit. But keep your eye out. Follow JP Graziano on Twitter. That's the best way to find out. So, TasteRealChicago.com, 901 West Randolph. You guys know it's our spot. Go get a beef kit. Go enjoy a sub. It's the way to go. And also, it's Friday night. If you're looking to, have some sex, I guess, right? Make sure you're using Roman, because most guys, a lot of people have tried different ways to last longer in bed, but you got to stop these methods. There's nothing that is going to help you quite like something that's clinically proven that will help you, okay? So Roman swipes, they're clinically proven as a way to last longer in bed. They're effective, easy to use, and they're fast acting, but they don't require a prescription. Roman can ship swipes to you in discreet, unmarked packaging, and each swipe packet is small enough to hide in your wallet for whenever you need it. They're super easy to use. Just take the swipe out of the packet, swipe it on, let it dry, and you're good to go. That's it. To get your hands on them, all you got to do is go to GetRoman.com/walk, and you can get your first month of swipes for just $5 when you choose a monthly plan. That's GetRoman.com/walk. I don't want to hear people complaining and thinking about later on, be like, oh, it's Friday night. I wish I got the swipes. I wish I went to GetRoman.com/walk. Then you could do it right now, bright and early. Go do it. You'll have them ready for next weekend. And you'll be good to go. GetRoman.com/walk. Go get your Roman. All right, Allie. So on another note, Sometimes there's situations where it's like a no-brainer. Like, that we got to cover a certain topic, and obviously that is today with Gabby Petito and the sad. I mean, has it been identified yet? Mm-hmm. It has. Mm-hmm. Okay. Obviously the sad death. So
yes.
Let's just start wherever we're going to start here.
Yeah, so this is, like you said, this is a huge in the news right now. Not an unknown case. The case of Gabby Petito has been, blowing up everywhere. Twitter, TikTok, Instagram, news feeds, the TVs. I texted you on, Friday or Saturday. I said we have to cover this ongoing case this week. Not only because it's, super relevant. It's obviously super intriguing for the true crime world. So obviously, as you know, here at Barstool, we have a huge platform for public reach. Mm-hmm. Being that this is an ongoing case, when I had texted you, she had not yet been found. She was still a missing person. It is also helpful. And, as for doing True Crimes Fridays, it's huge for us to be able to not only give the public knowledge, but also be a voice for, at that time, like I said, Gabby was missing, but be a voice for her, be a voice for her family, and, say, hey, this is the information we have. We've talked about this before. potentially one of our listeners could have some
you never
nugget of
know.
information that could be helpful or could change the course of the investigation. And so that's where, it's also very important and very helpful that we can come on and cover this case today.
Yeah, totally. And it is, just so people know, get some background. It is Thursday at 1:30 p.m. when we're recording.
Yes.
So
Thursday the 23rd.
These things move fast, and who knows if
even since I've texted you, I texted you on I think Friday or Saturday, said, hey, let's cover this case this week.
And I told you, I was like, yeah, definitely, but like, let's do it as late as possible because I think it's going to keep moving and moving. So,
and it has. I mean, it's made huge strides. Like when I sat down to write this episode, it was still a missing persons case, which is totally different than a homicide case, which it is now changed to. So, when I started doing this, I started gathering pictures of, things that you would do for a missing person. Started looking at identifying features. She had a lot of tattoos, people could be on the lookout for. She had a timeline, location, stuff like that. Now it's kind of shifted into more of a homicide investigation, which changes the course hugely. So being that this is such a well-known case right now, we're just going to do kind of a high-level overview, and then we're going to touch on a couple different points and see there's some things that don't match up. There's, points of debate here that there's a lot of different theories floating around or emerging right now.
Perfect. Yeah, you could touch it a little bit at the beginning if people are completely unfamiliar, if they just haven't been following it all. So, but it's like this is a weird one where it might be a little different because I don't even think you got to go that deep into it because it's like people are so kind of caught up to it now. But
yeah, it's if there's anybody out there that doesn't know about it, I would be more shocked than if they even if they just haven't heard the name.
Yeah, that's what a lot of people do though. They see the name, they like see it trending, but then they won't look into it. So
or they'll just know hey, it's a homicide or hey, it's a missing person. So for a high level overview, Gabby Petito was dating / engaged to a guy named Brian Laundrie. These two decided that they were going to go on a cross country road trip together. And so Gabby purchased a van for them to travel in. They turned it into their, home on the road. And they set off in early June of this year, 2021. They set off from New York, which is where Gabby's originally from. Brian lives in Florida with his family, which actually Gabby at the time was residing in Florida at Brian's family's home. But she had been in New York visiting her family. So they set off originally from New York. They made their way, down through the country, and they were making their way ultimately up to Yosemite. They stopped at a couple parks along the way, and through this, which has actually been huge in the investigation, both of them had been pretty active on social media, but Gabby was trying to start a blog and YouTube it. She had, channels that she was posting a video to. She was posting on Instagram. She was tagging her location.
Which has become wildly popular.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so, you look at her Instagram and she's got these beautiful photos. Her and Brian's also posted, he's very passionate about, a clean earth and things that are natural, organic, all of that good stuff, obviously traveling and hiking. Now, she had been, like I said, she had been tagging her location on her Instagram posts. So we can kind of track their trip. And then she was really good about keeping in contact with her family, saying, hey, this is where we are. This is where we're going next. This is when we're doing it. Just checking in with them. Obviously as parents, they were concerned that she was doing this cross country road trip. They want to keep tabs on her as, most parents would. Yep. So this brings us to, let's stop at August 12th. They are in Moab, Utah, and a eyewitness calls 911 on a domestic dispute. So this eyewitness, originally, if you listen to the call, he says that he saw what turned out to be Brian and Gabby. He saw Brian smacking Gabby. Whether he was mistaken or he misspoke, whatever it may be, he reports this domestic dispute. He said, hey, they took off in their van. This is where they went. Police go. They find the van and they catch up to it. The van is speeding like 30 miles over. And Brian is driving at this point. He crosses the yellow line into oncoming traffic, and then he swerves back. He hits the curb and then eventually pulls over for police. Now police get out, they stop and talk. You can watch the body cam footage of this entire encounter.
And you could listen to the 911 call too.
And you can listen to the 911 call. They separate Brian and Gabby. The police goes to talk to him. He say, hey, what's going on? Long story short, Gabby says, hey, we've been arguing all morning. I suffer from OCD. I was, having some anxiety about that, keeping the van clean and whatnot. Puts all the blame on herself. She says, yes, I hit Brian in the arm. That's why we swerved. I grabbed the wheel. That's why we swerved. Whatever. She puts all the blame on herself. She says, I was in a bad mood. I distracted him from driving, yada, yada, yada. They go talk to Brian. Brian he paints himself as the victim. He said Gabby was, all in a tizzy because she was having all this anxiety and OCD, was overwhelmed and, lashing out at me, and I pushed her to create space between us and yada, yada, yada. So he's painting himself as the victim very well. Now, when you listen to this, you not knowing anything about, if you don't know anything about domestic abuse, if you are just new to kind of, you don't know who these people are at all. Brian very much distanced himself from the situation. He says, this is what she was doing to me. She was hitting me in the arm, so I swerved. I was speeding because I was upset, or I was, caught off guard. I had locked her out of the car to try and create distance, whatever, to keep myself spaced. I told her, he says, I told her she needed to take a minute. She needed to calm down. Let's take a step back. Like, saying all these things that, police essentially would want to hear. Knowing the information that we do, I would say that probably did not take place as calmly as he describes it. Again, dealing with domestic abusers, we're starting to paint a picture of how their relationship may actually be, not so happy as they portray it on social media, which we always know no one's as happy as they portray on social media.
Yep. And the body cam footage, it's not crystal clear 4K, obviously.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
But the scratches on his face did look pretty gnarly.
They did. And yes, this is not to say that, Gabby had no partake in this, right? You know what I'm saying?
I'm just saying, the cop taking the story at face value.
He's taking it saying, oh, Brian's this victim. But is he though?
Yeah.
That's, he's one of those people that seemingly one of those people who is a charmer. He's going to talk his way out of things. Whereas Gabby fully took, and I would say, this is just my opinion, me talking here, Gabby was taking all the blame onto herself. I would say that was almost out of fear of Brian, saying if I blame it on him, he's going to be really mad at me. Who knows what's going to happen once the police leave, that kind of thing.
Totally.
So that's my perception of it. So they had this, they ended up separating them for the night, and they went about their road trip. Now, Gabby had again been posting and contacting her family. She was in contact with her family, and then her family didn't hear from her for a couple of days. Now, they were headed up to Yosemite. They were in Utah. This kind of changes. So we have essentially along the lines is Gabby has not heard from her family, or Gabby's family has not heard from her. Long story short, let's fast forward to September 11th. Gabby's family reports her missing. Now, September 1st, allegedly, Brian returns home to Florida with the van, but without Gabby. So now no one's heard from Gabby. Brian will not speak. He will not speak to police. He will not speak to the family. He will not give any information. He immediately lawyers up. Immediately. Which is interesting, though, because one of these sources, when researching this case, he lawyers up with somebody who is licensed to practice law in New York, not in Florida, and also does not practice criminal law. What I took away from that was it must be a family friend who's a lawyer, and they needed help immediately kind of thing. So they got this family friend to lawyer. That's, again, this is just my perception of it. Otherwise, why wouldn't you get someone who practices criminal law in Florida, right?
Yeah.
So he's not talking. He immediately, quote unquote, lawyers up. And again, Gabby's family had previously reached out before they had reported her missing, reached out to Brian and reached out to the family saying, hey, we haven't heard from Gabby. Can you give us any information? They reached out several times, got no response whatsoever. Now the police show up to the Laundrie home. They are immediately met with, here's the lawyer's contact information. Brian's parents will not let police in. They will not let them get to Brian. They say this is the lawyer's contact information. You can go talk to them. So police are like, okay, this is whatever. But you can go back and forth between the whole lawyer thing. Is it smart to lawyer up? Is it shady? Mm-hmm. It's both. If you can still be innocent and get a lawyer, but it is very shady. Now, going kind of briefly into the accounts of sightings and kind of tracking that period of time where she went missing, that window of time. August 27th is the last known, right now, quote unquote sighting, or we know that she was active in some way. Two reasons. One, it was just put out that there was a sighting of her on the 27th. That is within the past couple of hours that has come out. And also, another source said that, again, you can look at her. So she followed this other couple who did the same thing, like blogged and vlogged their road trips. They were like van lifers as well. And she had liked a post of theirs on Instagram on the 27th. This was kind of debated as far as like, did Brian have control of her Instagram? Was he posting for her? Because her last two posts are kind of, there are discrepancies that may not have pointed to she was the one who posted them. Mm-hmm. So some people are saying he was posting on her Instagram to kind of keep her facade up and not raise any flags. But it's kind of weird to say like he would go as far as to like liking other people's posts.
But wasn't there the text thing too though, where he texted the parents? Like,
yes. So this is on the 27th.
Well, maybe allegedly texted the parents.
Right.
Allegedly, sorry.
So this Instagram post and this potential sighting is on the 27th of August. Now, on the 30th, Gabby's mom receives a text from her and says, no service in Yosemite. Like, we don't have service, which was very odd. It was not how she usually talked. It made Gabby's mom kind of perk up. Mm-hmm. Weird, but okay, maybe they really don't have service. Whatever. Now, it is believed at the moment that text did not come from Gabby. That actually came from Brian. Totally possible, but we don't know yet. Now, there have been, so if we're following this timeline, at this moment, the last solid information that we have for her was the 27th. This text message to her mom comes on the 30th. Brian returns home with the van to his home in Florida. Again, they were up in Utah on the 1st. Distance-wise, if you're kind of to calculate that, it is around a 36-hour drive. Which takes more than a day to get there. So that would not make sense. And then September 11th is when she was reported missing. So he had been home for 10 days, did not report her missing, would not speak to the family. In that time had lawyered up. Not looking so good, right? Yeah. Now, along the way, once she was reported missing, actually now something that has been huge in this case is TikTok. First of all, we've got all these armchairs detective out there looking at stuff, putting little pieces together, giving their theories, which in this case has been really good for law enforcement. Not only was it good that Gabby was tracking everything on social media, it gives a really good footprint that they can look into, that they can track down, gives them so much information. But now, as far as TikTokers go, there have been two really significant individuals that have played a part in this from TikTok. The first was a girl posted a TikTok video that said, hey, we picked up Brian Laundrie when he was hitchhiking because he said, hey, can you guys give me a ride? Her and her boyfriend were also road tripping the national parks, and he said, I need to go to Jackson, Wyoming. And she said, oh, we're actually headed to Jackson, Wyoming. Yes, he offered them $200. Yes, you can come with us. they kind of made small talk, and he was in the car for a little bit over a half hour. It's not a long time. And so they picked him up. They were making small talk in this vehicle. And as soon as the girl said Jackson Hole, which she has since put out that Jackson, Wyoming and Jackson Hole, Wyoming are the same place. He got really agitated and things started to turn weird. And he was like, I need to get out. And she was like, this is very weird, but like, let him out. You know, they're not holding him captive in the car. Yeah. So he got out. He was like, I'm going to hitch a ride with somebody else. And they started to drive away. He said, I'm going to go into this parking lot where there was a bunch of other people. He said, I'm going to hitch a ride. They looked back about 10, 15 seconds after they started to drive away. He was nowhere to be seen. Seemingly, he did not go to that parking lot to hitch another ride, which is all just weird. Now, within this conversation that they had...
And it's confirmed that they picked him up, though? Like, the video of him and shit? Like, is that... Or this is just...
I don't know that...
Account? Okay.
Yeah, this is her account. She has talked to law enforcement and given them her official statements. Okay. It's pretty concrete to what we know at this point. So within their conversations that they'd had in the car, he said he was on a cross-country road trip with his fiance. She was back at the campsite working on this blog that she was creating, vlog that she was websiting, and that he was hitchhiking on his own. He said he had been sleeping on a tarp for a couple days, doing his thing. This couple noted to themselves that, okay, he had been hitchhiking and or camping on his own for a couple days, sleeping on this tarp, but he looked fresh. His clothes were fresh. He was not dirty in any way. She said the only part of him that was dirty were his boots. They had, dirt or mud on them, but it was dry. It was not fresh. Also notable that he usually hiked barefoot. So interesting. And if you had been truly literally sleeping in nature for a couple of days on a tarp, but you look clean, you look fresh, and all he had with him was a backpack. So this was on the 29th. Again, that text came on the 30th. He returned home on the 1st. Again, he was not with Gabby. He did not mention the name Gabby when they picked him up. He just said my fiance. But anyways, this is part of their timeline. Now, another significant piece is this other couple who were, also van lifers. They were driving along doing their thing. They had a dashboard cam. This dashboard cam picked up the van that Brian and Gabby were traveling in. It had been kind of parked like, have you seen this video?
Yeah, it's crazy.
Okay. So you'd seen it's like parked kind of like off the road a little bit, like within the brush a little bit. And they noticed, they went back and looked at the footage and said, this is their van. Now, when they passed it, they said that they did not see anybody inside of it. Again, you can only see the windows. You can only see into the driver's and passenger seat. So you cannot see into the back of the van. There was also a video of like the van door, the back doors closing as they drove by. People have looked really far into this being like, oh, he thought someone was coming and he closed the door, blah, blah, blah. It could go either way. I mean, he could have literally just been closing the door. If that were him, if it were Gabby, we don't know. But they picked up this sighting. And that was the last known. That is essentially fast forward to when Gabby they started searching for her in that area is where they started searching. So that is how they knew where they needed to search, because that was the last kind of account of where the van was. People also dove really deep there was a pair of flip-flops on the ground outside of the van doors. Initially, people looked into like, oh, these are Gabby's flip-flops. She had OCD. She wanted to keep the van clean, so she took them off to go into the van. They zoomed in on pictures of her flip-flops saying, oh, it looks exactly like them. I don't know if and how this would even be significant if it were Gabby's flip-flops, but it's not confirmed that they're Gabby's flip-flops, because if you look there's a picture on Brian's Instagram highlights that he has very similar looking flip-flops. He's got like his feet crossed. You can see his shoes. So it could have literally been Brian's shoes outside of the van, and he just took his shoes off to go inside. So people dove really deep into that point, but it's kind of a wishy-washy point to
it was more
latch
like
onto.
People from their own perspective are probably seeing what they wanted to see, like they wanted to be.
Yeah, like, oh, Gabby's shoes are outside.
And like, oh my gosh, did you see that? So there's probably, who knows? Like maybe
Yeah.
maybe it will be significant down the line, but at this point, it's like,
Might
hey,
be.
they're just flip flops.
Yeah. So we've got these accounts of Brian getting picked up on the 29th. We know he's back home by the 1st. And we have this other video of where the van is. And that's the last account of the van. So being with all this, Gabby is reported missing. The searchers start searching for her, right? Again, in that area where the van was parked. Now, this area that they were at, it was not yet Yosemite. They were in this park, in this area. First of all, it came from an account of a hiker that is very familiar with that area and hikes there a lot. He said it's not obviously not impossible to hike. People do it all the time, but it is very well known for wildlife. And he had said later, after she had been missing a couple of days, he said if she were out there alone, without shelter, without whatever, it drops below freezing at night. And there's a lot of wildlife out there. So 2 very dangerous situations for someone just to be out there on their own. Mm-hmm. If she were to, have walked off, if she were to go on her own, if she would have been left there, whatever it may be. So, which is significant because, again, at this point, she's just a missing person. Now, there was a bunch of other, like, quote-unquote sightings of her. Some of them were not actually her. But people were keeping their eye out. Now, this brings us to people looking at her Instagram. There's a couple different things. So she usually tagged her location on her Instagram of where they were when she was posting these things. In the last 2 posts that she had done, they were not tagged in the location, and people have kind of depicted the wording of her captions to be like, hey, maybe this was not her. Some of them, again, you can say, hey, this is far-fetched, and some of them you can actually say, okay, maybe you have some grounds here, saying like, oh, this actually sounds more like Brian's captions that he writes, or she wasn't tagging the location. People looked into, so her last posted Instagram post was them at this like monarch site, and she posted a video with against this wall that was monarch butterflies. One thing actually that stood out to me the most was somebody said, have you ever seen Legally Blonde?
I haven't, but I'm familiar.
So for those of you who have, Elle Woods wins this case because of a beauty tip, essentially. Mm-hmm. Now someone was like, not to go all Elle Woods, but hey, look at her hair. If you look at the pictures that she had posted before, she had blonde hair. Her roots were grown out, which would make sense, right? You're on a cross-country road trip. You might not have easy access to like the salon to get your roots done. If you look at her most recent Instagram post, her roots are they look freshly done, meaning this may have been an old picture of hers. And so essentially they looked into that saying, Brian posted this trying to make it look like they were there, but they were not actually there. This is an old picture. This has not been all the way confirmed. I will say that this Monarch place has turned over footage of them being there. I have not heard of that date that it was, if it was confirmed that they were there when the picture was posted, essentially. So it could be interesting to see if that were kind of a discrepancy there, being like, this might not have been, or this could have been an old picture. Now, there's a team searching out for Gabby, right? On this past Sunday, which was, what was the date this past Sunday? The 19th. FBI and the search and rescue they came on a press conference, said, we have found human remains, again, in the area where that van was seen, that matches the description of Gabby Petito. Now, to note, there were allegedly 3 people missing in this area. 3 missing people. 2 of them were male. 1 of them was Gabby. So, being that it said you find a body, if you're finding the body, it should be pretty easy to determine male or female, right? Mm-hmm. Relatively.
Yeah.
they came on, they said this matches Gabby's description. So people also latched onto FBI released, hey, we found a body. In an hour or half hour, we're going to do a press conference. So they said they found a body first before they said it matched Gabby's description. When they just said they found a body, people were latching onto the fact that 10 minutes after they said they found the body, the cadaver dogs had left the scene. Let me say, as somebody who works in the industry, that is not at all something to latch onto, because for those of you who don't know, there are at least two different types of canines that you can use in searches. There are cadaver dogs and there are scent dogs. Cadaver dogs are trained to scent a decomposition or dead body, not a specific person. So to do it, like if dogs were searching for you, how do I put this?
They would go for your scent, for like your personal scent. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. So cadaver dogs are trained to smell decomposition and decay, versus so they could be looking for you or I. It wouldn't matter the difference. Now, scent dogs would be trained on your specific scent or my specific scent.
Your shampoo, your perfume.
And they could acknowledge to you, hey, this is their scent specifically. So there was cadaver dogs there, not scent dogs. Mm-hmm. So it makes sense after a body was found that the cadaver dogs would leave. Mm-hmm. So people were like, oh my God, the cadaver dogs left 10 minutes later. This has to be Gabby. That means they found a body. That doesn't mean they weren't scented on Gabby. Now, they come on and say that the description matches Gabby, but they have not confirmed DNA yet, but the family has been notified. What I picked up that really, really stood out to me in this press conference was that the individual said human remains have been found that match the description of Gabby, not a body has been found. To me, again, this is just my opinion, that indicates not an entire body was found. He said human remains. And again, if you go back to one, and before that, it's before the press conference, and it said the age and the gender and identification are not verified right now, or we don't know them. So again, that points to me that this remains that they found were somehow mutilated. Mm-hmm. Just my opinion.
Yeah.
But also, if you look at pictures of Gabby, she is very unique and very recognizable. She has a lot of tattoos. She's got tattoos of specific things in specific places. She has specific piercings. Obviously a specific description that we can tell from pictures and stuff. So it would be very easy to identify her, right? Obviously, they have to say matching the description at first because they need DNA to confirm it before they say it's officially her. That's true for any case. But the family had been notified. So now, fast forward to this week, they have confirmed that it is Gabby. Those remains were confirmed to be Gabby, and her cause of death was homicide. They have not released a manner of death, which if you go, these are two different things, and they have to do the autopsy to determine those. Now, these, like I said, these are two very specific different things. So cause of death would be how you died. Homicide, asphyxiation, accident, natural causes. Manner of death would be in what manner did it cause it. So, for example, asphyxiation by strangulation. The cause, you died from asphyxiation because you were strangled. So we have cause of death, homicide. We do not yet have manner of death into, was it blunt force trauma? Was it gunfire? Was it whatever it may be? They are still doing the autopsy to figure that out.
Okay.
So that is what we are waiting on, is a manner of death. To my knowledge, we do not have a time of death, but we do know potentially the last time she was alive was the 27th. Hitchhikers picked Brian up on the 29th without Gabby. So to me, that is our window between the 27th and the 29th.
I don't get it, though. He just left the van behind. What does that mean?
Yes. What I don't understand is why he was hitchhiking.
You're like, why?
Because we know he drove the van back home.
And he was hitchhiking around the area where they found her, right?
So he was hitchhiking trying to go to Jackson Hole.
Yes, I knew that. But
So yeah, it doesn't make sense unless he was like somehow trying to create an alibi for himself or like a sighting of himself, which at that point I think if that was true, why didn't you say, hey, my name is Brian Laundrie, yada, 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 like fully identify yourself? But I don't know what his point behind hitchhiking was, especially because her body was found near where the van was spotted. Mm-hmm. So it's not like he like went to this faraway remote location. You know, if he was the one who killed her, disposed of her, went back to the van and then went home, like that doesn't even make sense, right? Because her body was found near where the van was. Yeah. So I don't know what the whole point behind him hitchhiking was. It doesn't make any sense to me. No. Now.
And right now he's missing, right?
He is missing.
That's the biggest thing.
Yes. So his parents reported him missing last Friday, which was the 17th of September. They said he had actually been missing since Tuesday, which was the 14th. They said he had gone over into this was in Northport, Florida. He had gone over to the reserve that was by their home, and he had taken his backpack with him to go on a hike. That's what they said. Now, here is where things get shady. First of all, people are all up in a tizzy about these parents, protecting him, not saying anything, not letting them get to Brian, helping him get away, helping him cover things up, which could totally be possible. We'll talk about that in a minute. So they said that on Tuesday, he went out to the reserve to go on a hike with him in his backpack. They did not hear from him, yada, yada, yada. Now he drove this Mustang to the reserve to go on a hike. And the family said that on Thursday, they brought the Mustang home. If you read into this was because it had given notice like, hey, this vehicle is essentially, authorities were like, your vehicle is sitting here. You need to move it. Now, they said that they brought it home on Thursday. However, news reporters were already at the house and they were reporting Wednesday, there's footage of the Mustang sitting in the driveway. So why would they say Thursday?
Yeah, why?
Also, why would you wait until Friday to say that he's missing? He left on Tuesday. Again, he left with his backpack to go on a hike, just his backpack. Why 3 days later would you wait to report him missing when you know all this stuff is going on, right? Does not add up to me. Now, with the whole parents thing and with all the charges things, people are really upset on why did police not arrest him right then and there when Gabby was reported missing. As much as I wish that they could have, again, as somebody who works in the industry, you have to have, they had no grounds to arrest him. They had a missing persons report, but there was zero evidence of a crime had been committed. So they could not take Brian into custody for anything. He was not obstructing justice. Again, his parents, him lawyering up, well within his rights. His parents were not, also no evidence that they were committing a crime yet. Yeah. So they were not obstructing justice yet because there were no charges and no crimes. So this is why that he was not taken in immediately, because people are very fixated on that. Now, once they found the remains, he was already missing at this point. So they couldn't take him into custody, but there have been searches. There has been a search for several days now for him in the reserve. What is interesting is they started at one area over the weekend, looking for him in this reserve, looking for Brian in the reserve. Since then, they have now gone, and this reserve is massive. It's like 25,000 acres. They have since gone to a spot that is 17 miles away from where their first search area was to now that they're now searching. They have not released why. They have gone that's a very far, breach.
Distance, yeah.
Some people have said, oh, he may have gone to the reserve and he may have killed himself. He may not even be alive now. a lot of stuff is, okay, very interesting to me. If he went for a hike, quote unquote, a hike, him and his backpack out to this reserve, is what he had enough to last him this amount of time? Like, would it even be possible for him to have survived this amount of time, whether he committed suicide or not? Is it even possible that he is, like, could have survived? So if he had gone on Tuesday, which is the 14th, it's now the 23rd. That's a week and 2 days. If he just left with a backpack. Yeah, I don't know the answer to that because I am not an avid hiker. I'm not familiar to these, like, this area, if this is even possible, but that's a question that I have for either people in the area, people who have done this, people who are experienced hikers.
There's so much unknown too. Like, okay, he just had a backpack. Do we know, like,
how big of a backpack was it? Exactly. What was in it? Like, so to me, that's very interesting. It's been a significant amount of time. Is it even possible? Like physically possible, whether, in the sense that he did not kill himself, is it possible that he's still alive? Now, the big thing to me. So now, first of all, now that we have Gabby's remains and the fact that it was a homicide, they absolutely have grounds to arrest him if he is pointed a subject. He was pointed a missing or a person of interest, and he is now his own quote unquote missing persons case, which has been also pointed to, especially by Gabby's family. Brian is not missing. Brian is hiding and or on the run. Gabby was the one who was missing, which is very different. Brian went, quote unquote, missing on his own will. Now, a couple of significant points. People say, did he go, is he even still alive? If he is alive, what is his knowledge of the current situation? What is his plan? We don't know.
Yeah.
And if you lawyer up, then why go missing? You immediately come home and lawyer up, and then you go missing, you go on the run. Not a good look.
I don't know. I mean, I'm obviously speculating like everybody else at this point, but just all I know about him is from the body cam footage and just seeing like how he kind of fed those lines, and something tells me he's like a master bullshit kind of artist. Yeah. And he maybe did that, but then he's like, hey, you know what? Why go through that when I think I'm good enough to go on the run and, throw people off the scent and go hitchhiking if that was something. But obviously all speculation by me.
And again, when he left to go on a hike in this reserve, there was still no evidence of a crime being committed. So he was well within his rights to go on a hike. But it has since gone into, okay, it's very clear that he is trying to stay out of the eye of everybody, trying to stay out of custody now because we do have human remains. We do have the fact that it's a homicide. He is to my knowledge, the only person that they are looking at. I will touch on this very briefly. I think we could go down a whole rabbit hole with this, but we will not. The fact that there was a double homicide in I believe it was Moab, Utah, at the same time frame that they were in Moab and that Gabby went missing. There was a double homicide of two girls. Is this related? I don't know.
Yeah, but we won't know.
It's a weird coincidence.
It's something to say, yeah, because a lot of people aren't going to say that because, I mean, sure, like a lot of signs are pointing, but
could be related, could not be. People have theorized as far as Gabby going missing, like if Brian were the one to commit this other double homicide, either she was involved and she wanted to confess, or she didn't know and she found out, and so Brian killed her. Those are just theories that are floating around for them to be connected. Again, I don't know if they're connected. I'm not going to go down that rabbit hole because we don't have enough information yet to even go down that rabbit hole.
Yeah.
But it's something that's out there.
Yeah.
Now, one source that I used during my research of this case, and I will say it is a very, very credible source, stated, so there's this app that Gabby had on her phone that tracked the trails that they were going, so essentially like tracked her location. And they tracked the trails they were hiking and whatnot. This has since been checked by law enforcement because they now have subpoenaed the phones and phone records and PINs, which takes a couple of days to get. So they don't have, at the time that I was researching this, they did not have full access to the phones as far as like getting pings, but they did have access to information that's on the phone. This source stated that app was now showing her location to be Puerto Rico. This completely turns everything on a 180. Mm-hmm. We know she's not alive.
Yeah.
We know Brian could potentially have her phone. Meaning two different things. Obviously, being in Florida, you're very close to, you're not far from Puerto Rico, right?
Yeah.
So if he went on the run, did he flee to Puerto Rico with intentions to flee elsewhere? Because Puerto Rico is still U.S. territory. So to like flee the country. Do we even know that he's still in Florida or still in that reserve? Has he fled to Puerto Rico now? Secondly, which is also a question that I have been asking myself this entire time, since he has not interacted with law enforcement, did he even go home? The van went home. Did he drop off the van? Did his parents help him flee then and there? Was he home for those 10 days before she was reported missing? Was he home when the police went to the house and the parents presented him with the attorney information? They have not taken him into custody. They have not questioned him. So how long was he home for?
Why would he have the phone, though? That's like...
That I don't know.
That's
that
like 101.
is weird to me.
Like, come on. Like, you can't...
Mm-hmm.
You know that's like the most traceable thing possible.
Right. Which I don't know if his thought behind that was like, oh, if the phone can show this crazy different location, maybe that will like, again, before she was found, maybe they'll start looking for her there, like not thinking she would be found so quickly. But it's very, very weird. And again, I wouldn't read so heavily into this unless I knew it was a very, very credible source that gave this information, and it was. So that I don't know how it fits into it, if it fits into it at all, if that's plausible or credible. But it has also been, people are starting now to ask the question of, can we confirm that he was at home, or was he at home we know the van made it back there. So right, he had to make it back there at some point. But how long was he there for? We don't know. We know that she was reported missing on the 11th, but we don't know if he was there that whole time or if he had already left.
Yeah, so there's a lot of open space.
That's a huge time frame to say, because the parents could have just as easily driven the Mustang to the reserve and then gone and picked it up a couple days later and said, oh, he's in the reserve.
Yeah.
I don't think my opinion, again, allegedly, no, everyone's innocent until proven guilty. No charges have been given at this time. I do not think Brian is innocent. And I also do not think that parents are innocent. Meaning I don't think the parents were involved in her disappearance and or her murder. But I think that they have been trying to protect their son in helping him evade law enforcement in any way possible. Again,
speculation, but that's
speculation.
That would be your guess.
And they now are not being charged with obstruction of justice at this point because Brian went missing before there was any evidence of a crime. So them living their lives in their home right now, not talking to police is not, at this point, not obstructing justice. It is not harboring a fugitive because Brian is allegedly not at the home. It is not, they are in the clear right now. Mm-hmm. That doesn't mean they will stay in the clear because of the ways that they've already acted, depending on what charges are brought. As far as premeditation goes, I guess to me this does not point to first degree. To me it more so points to, okay, they were having issues in their relationship. Clearly there were signs of domestic abuse. There was a domestic incident reported and the police were interacted with that. To me, maybe tensions got high. Brian snapped and then, is now trying to cover his tracks, evade police, whatever it may be. could be second, could be manslaughter, depending on the amount of like knowing and will and quote unquote premeditation within a second degree. But to me, right now, from the information that we know, does not point to like they set off on this road trip for him to kill her. Because it was just all too well documented on social media. It was too much of that to where it didn't really point to. It could be. Again, I don't know.
I see it like a long con, but who knows? Like, who knows?
Yeah. Who knows? There was a lot of experts have touched on this. Very, very, very clear signs of domestic abuse within the relationship, with Brian being the abuser. Both of them had said that they struggled with OCD, were not medicated, not meaning if you have OCD that you need to be medicated, but, you know, something to note with that may have affected their behavior. If you just look at it, I mean, straight fact-based, you go on a cross-country road trip with one other person in a small van that you are both sharing. That in and of itself is going to have grounds for arguments. That is not going to be rainbows and unicorns all the time.
Yeah.
That's a very small space.
Big time.
Very isolated. So it makes sense that they were having some sort of, you know, arguments or struggles in and of itself. I think that's
you go on a road
inevitable.
trip with anyone, you're going to
Yeah. You and I
so.
went in a van, in a small van, went on a road trip. We would probably argue as well.
Oh, yeah.
That's, you know, that's just human nature. So if this was the grounds for it was too much for Brian and he ended up snapping, whatever it may be, I think at this point, the two biggest things in this case are, one, obviously finding Brian, and two, determining manner of death on how she was killed. So, and updates are coming out
rapidly. So we'll see
on the hour. So by the time people hear this, things could have changed. And this is we're in Thursday for people.
Yeah, I gave you the time, so we'll see what happens within the next, you know, 16,
next even 24 hours.
Yeah, exactly.
By the time, you know, we post this. But I will do my best personally to keep updates, people updated from what I see.
And you have an Instagram, right? That's what's your account?
True Crime Allie.
There you go.
ALLIE is Allie. I will keep as much updated as I can. These are rapid fire updates, like we were saying. We'll see. I mean, maybe it's like we continue to do Fridays. Maybe we'll just like provide a quick update off the top or something. Who knows? Yeah. Who knows what's going to come out? Yeah. So we obviously, at this point, it is a small piece of positivity in this terrible situation is the family, Gabby's family, has been able to at least locate her and bring her home. Hopefully this means that justice will be able to be served, whether that be Brian or not. Give the family some closure and some more answers. So to be continued. Yeah. Heavily to be continued.
Yeah. Well, all right, Allie, thank you for breaking that down. Appreciate it. That was great. That's it for today, everybody. That's it for this week. We'll see you all on Monday.